Yo, what is up guys? This is a video where I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts on Darkest Dungeon 1. I knew I was gonna be in for an epic adventure when I heard the following happy words. Ruin has come to our family. You remember our venerable house, opulent and imperial, resting above its stoic perch, something such. So when the game first came out, I was actually busy playing other games. So to me, it's just something I saw other streamers play. This quirky, side-scrolling, RPG-like adventure with these combat maneuvers where the monsters and the heroes are stabbing each other in turn. The atmosphere seemed really good, but I didn't really give myself a chance to experience it much at the time. Since I picked it up again, early in September, I've already clocked 168.9 hours on it, according to my Steam library so far, and I could easily see myself wanting to do yet another run. So let's talk about my first impression of the game first. The game seems to perfectly blend together the elements of simplicity, humble beginnings, a stellar atmosphere, and an engaging gameplay into a mixture that left me wanting more. I decided to experience Darkest Dungeon 1 completely blindly. I looked up no wikis, didn't allow my chat to backseat me, had not watched other streamers play the game to any meaningful capacity, and mods even set the chat into emote only mode when I went into some of the more tenebrous corners of the dungeon. Any boss fights, any unique interactions, and I didn't know how to interact with any of the points of interest in the Darkest Dungeon. So it really was a big journey of trial and error, sometimes with laughably bad outcomes. What followed for me was an experience in how I think the game was meant to be experienced. Alone, blind, in the dark, prone with errors. Chucking 6 different ingredients into a point of interest would end up feeling painful, wasteful, and therefore wonderful. Finally getting the correct interactable left me with a sense of elation, if a sheepish one at that. Oh yeah, of course it's the anti-venom that I need to sprinkle all over the tree trunk in order to not get poisoned by its contents. Of course. Hand over the treasures. So I've played some games similar to Darkest Dungeon 1 that I think it is comparable to. It also ties in with why I started playing the game this time around. I just finished an XCOM 2 campaign and people were suggesting for me to try out Darkest Dungeon 1. I had played a couple of hours some years back, but I was too busy with other games to really give it a serious go, and now the time was right to try it for the first time. There are similarities in the city building aspect and then going on missions with XCOM 2, which by the way is a wonderful game as well. I haven't done a video on that yet. And then you go into missions to do fights, you kind of pick which mission to go towards, which dungeon you want to explore. You could be either targeting certain trinkets, certain dungeon progression, bosses, and also you could be farming for gold or XP and level ups. While XCOM 2 is more extensive in its expression of the fights, with far more variables, I think Darkest Dungeon 1 brings a simplicity and elegance to the dungeon crawling experience, and the fights and interactions are full of knowledge checks and discoveries, but still come with a really healthy dosage of playing the tactician with tactical planning, hero composition considerations, and making up for certain losses along the way and certain afflictions along the way. Although I cannot quite remember its name right now, a long time ago I played a game similar to Darkest Dungeon 1, where you also had dungeon crawling in the Doom perspective, first person, and then you had the town building aspect as well, and I even remember you brought back heirlooms as well, some kind of crests? But I can't remember the name of the game, but it was one of my favorite games at the time. And so Darkest Dungeon 1 really rubbed that same itch for such a grind experience. Add to that the enjoyable gameplay loop, the stellar atmosphere, the music, and the narration of the late Wayne Junes. And that leaves Darkest Dungeon 1 as having few legitimate rivals in the genre, in my opinion. For me, Darkest Dungeon 1 was all about guesswork, discovery, and trying things out, learning the value of the different heroes, and establishing what road I was supposed to take in order to get to the final Darkest Dungeon. The threat of that final dungeon was a palpable fear, and the goal of conquering it seemed at once impossibly distantly removed, as well as a laser focus for me eventually in order to be able to get to there. Step by step, I eked out a small income from my intrepid expeditions, only to find myself beggared often and broken again by the latest bevy of necessary upgrades that I would have to make to the infrastructure of my town, my ramshackle Hamlet, as well as my impoverished tomb raiders. It was a thoroughly engaging gameplay loop that begs to be experienced again, at higher difficulties, with a more refined efficiency and possibly even delving into the world of mods that are apparently very multitudinous in Darkest Dungeon 1. I completed my first darkest difficulty playthrough, which is the middle difficulty, without any DLCs in about 90 hours, which is a little long, but I kind of took my time for it. I hear that you can complete the game also in about 50 to 80 hours on average, but I took 90 because I took my time. I wanted to experience all the bosses of the base game, and I was afraid of going into the darkest dungeons because I didn't know what to expect. Then, very soon after, I went for a highest difficulty playthrough on Blood Moon difficulty with the 2 DLCs installed, the Farmstead and the Crimson Court one. I completed a playthrough of that in about 70 hours, and it was amazing. I managed to beat it within the kill limit and within the time limit, which were 2 very exciting aspects that I think make the game even better. Although I can recommend people to start on the lowest or medium difficulty for their first playthrough, having that loss condition of the highest difficulty added so much extra tension and pressure, and I personally like being able to fail in a game, and that gave everything extra urgency and meaning, and it was great. It's not often that I feel the urge renewed to start another playthrough when I finish a single player game. Usually I feel like it's done and dusted, but after the first playthrough I was already starting to fantasize about the higher difficulty playthrough. And then, even though I thought it should be done at that point because I've already beaten the game in Blood Moon, I kind of want to go do it again. I just feel like the game is that good, and I would have fun with it, and I haven't even beaten all of Crimson Court yet, nor have I defeated all the bosses on Blood Moon difficulty, so that could be a really cool target to focus on next time around as well. To me, that says a lot about the powerful allure that Red Hook created with Darkest Dungeon 1, that I could imagine a third playthrough. While I don't think that the game has necessarily infinite replayability, I don't think it needs to have it either. I've already got far beyond my money's worth on the game. There are some points in the game that require one to grind extra experience points, gold or trinkets, but I never found those moments to be boring or tedious. To the contrary, I was so focused on the importance of power growth in order to be able to challenge that daunting final set of dungeons that no time spent getting stronger felt wasted. On a mechanical level, in terms of the controls and the UI, I had very few complaints. I had a small issue where I had to click slightly lower than objects actually appeared in order to interact with them. This was true for all the buttons in the game, but it might have something to do with the type of window or screen capture that I felt I needed to do in order to capture the game on stream with my OBS. I don't know if you know of any other streamer that had the same issue. Maybe I just managed to find a unique set of problems that are literally unique only to me. But I got used to it soon enough. It just means I had to click lower than buttons actually were. The game is a little older, and although it did come out after streaming was already a big thing, I can't comment on why this is actually happening per se, or whether it was a big oversight by the developers to have this bug that I'm having. At the end of the day, it was not a big deal, and I got used to it. From a mechanical standpoint, Darkest Dungeon 1 is mostly a mouse-clicking game. There are some important hotkeys, like being able to use numbers in order to interact with the different skills on heroes. So if I want to use this attack on number 1, I press 1, then left-click on an enemy. Or hotkeys like T in order to light up a torch without needing to go into your inventory. QE for cycling between different heroes, very useful. If there are any more hotkeys than that, I'm not familiar with them, nor was it necessary to have more than the ones I just mentioned. I'm someone that likes a clear UI, a clear and charming UI, which are often at odds with each other. In Darkest Dungeon 1, the UI often underreports what is going to be happening. It's a pet peeve of mine in strategy or RPG games, when the game doesn't say what things are going to be doing. But in Darkest Dungeon 1, I have to admit, it actually kind of adds to the allure. While I am familiar with playing games that require deep thinking, I'm not very used to a game requesting me to use creative thinking in order to figure out what is actually going to be happening, what something means. Like I said, I think this adds to the luster of Darkest Dungeon 1. With hindsight, I should actually have been paying more attention to what the narrator was saying more often, and that what he's saying may actually hint at actual meaning. And they're not just fluff lore drops, his lines. I thought the Antiquarian sucks when I looked at her level 0 skills, and so I kind of ignored her until, even through the walls of no backseating rules, it got spoiled for me that she has extra benefits that are hidden. But in hindsight, I could have possibly comprised that from what the narrator would say if you actually hire one from the stagecoach, with some comment about she can find treasures that no other can. It was actually very meaningful and quite funny and valuable to have that voice line point out what could be happening with the benefit of hindsight. Just so all the maniac quirks didn't seem that bad. Oh, you have religious visions? You're obsessed with corpses? That doesn't seem so bad. I'm not gonna shame your kinks until you actually see what they do in game when you're in a dungeon. And although they don't negatively affect your combat stats, that can have a real impact on your campaign run. And it's all one big surprise what is gonna be happening, because the quirk does not really explain what's gonna be happening at all. What I've been enjoying the most is the sense of, well, first of all, the atmosphere, of course. Stellar atmosphere, music, graphical art style, narration, all comes together to create this dark, challenging, amazing atmosphere that it just feels wonderful to be steeped into. Despair combats against triumph all the time. The sense of power growth versus the challenge of defeat, stress and death. Having a clear overarching goal, but one that seems far removed from my capabilities right now. And yet, with every step, I draw inexorably closer to that portal of antediluvian evil. Victory at last, or is it just a trick of the light? At least this expedition promises some success. On to the next point about the audio landscape, and I can't state this enough. For me personally, and I may be more extreme in this way than some other people, music and sound design is incredibly important. I'm probably more likely going to be playing a mediocre game with stellar audio design than a stellar game with mediocre audio. I like games that transport me into a different world, and the presentation of that world is quintessential to me to pulling off such a trip. Darkest Dungeon 1 scores perfect marks as far as I'm concerned in being able to create a cohesive, atmospheric transportation into a grim, dark, scary world of despair. I fight not just the monsters downstairs, but the monsters within myself and my own heroes. You haven't played Darkest Dungeon 1 really, unless your heroes have sent each other past the edge of sanity, or better yet, past the edge of life. From a technical performance standpoint, I have no comments. Darkest Dungeon 1 never crashed for me, I had no performance issues, and I encountered no bugs, save for those spiders and grubs that gave me 17 different communicable diseases. Just as important as to whether I like playing a game, as a streamer, it is important for me whether it is engaging and viable to be a stream game. Fortunately for me, Darkest Dungeon 1 is an excellent game for stream. It is engaging as it very vividly puts on display both success and failure. So both love watchers and hate watchers are gonna get what they want. There's bad RNG, there are knowledge checks, and there are skill and luck. The player and audience together watch with bated breath to see how it all plays out this time. Against the palette of Darkest Dungeon 1's tapestry of spectacular presentation, the streamer and player are just one entity of an engaging drama that unfolds, the game making up the rest. If I had to point out one of the biggest flaws in Darkest Dungeon 1 and one of the biggest unexpected highlights, starting with the flaw, I would point out that in my first playthrough on Darkest difficulty with no DLCs, I had no further use for heirlooms after I crested the ridge of heirloom scarcity and finally finished upgrading my whole city. They went from being the most valuable resource to bring back to being the least valuable resource, which felt weird even if logical within the economy of the Hamlet. The DLCs actually fixed this problem with the exorbitant prices that are hoisted upon the new town buildings. It allowed the tension around inventory management, which I love and hate, and therefore love to hate, to continue unabated, which I thoroughly enjoyed, even as I hated it. I was angry and sad that the game seemed to crash during my final boss encounter, until I realized that the game had not bugged out. In fact, it was asking something intolerable and unimaginable of me. If you know, you know. This ended up actually culminating to be a massive highlight. The post-game cinematic felt very satisfying and gave a sense of closure and epicness. Speaking as to how likely I am to play the game again, very likely. After defeating the final Darkest Dungeon 1 boss and winning my Blood Moon playthrough, I ended up dying on the 3rd Crimson Court boss. So there is unfinished business. This was my intent. You could say I threw the fight. Cleaning up the rest of Crimson Court after beating the game itself felt very anticlimactic. So I kind of threw the fight, not running, and I actually ended up reaching my magical 16 death number. The limit of a Blood Moon playthrough, even if that limit is lifted if you've already beaten the game. Now, I am regrettably forced to come back and do another playthrough sometime in the future, probably next year or so, 2026, and I look forward to this. Thank you for watching and listening to my thoughts on Darkest Dungeon 1. I don't ask this often, but please do subscribe to the channel and give it a like if you made it this far, and that will give me more motivation to do more of these thoughts videos on other games that I'm playing these days. Have a good one. See ya.